Oh, God doesn't exist. No, I recognize that music. And name, I guess. It's that one guy. And I genuinely can't remember if I've ever covered him, but I have seen quite a few of his videos. And goddamn, they are something alright. A haughty air of smug superiority throughout. And intentional or no, my goodness if it isn't completely insufferable. So, what thing are you can tell atheists about themselves today? Something condescending while still being obviously wrong, I'll bet.
Okay, obviously, atheists come in all shapes and sizes.
We certainly do, and it's certainly not all me in various different hats. No, 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 of course. There are definitely other people who are atheists. It would be really bizarre if they were all just the same guy, right?
And inevitably, whenever I offer any kind of argument about atheism or against atheism, people will say, not all atheists believe that. Not all atheists believe the same thing. That's a straw man argument.
Well, fair enough, they probably do that, but have you ever considered that if that happens every single time, that maybe, just maybe, you need to stop making generalizations and straw man arguments? I don't know. If it were me and it bothered me enough to bring it up multiple fucking times, perhaps I'm doing something without realizing it. And if you genuinely think people are being uncharitable or ignoring the context, the fuck makes you think that's gonna matter with your little speech multiple times that has not worked?
And that's true, not all atheists believe the same thing, but a 10-minute YouTube video doesn't allow me to address every variation of atheism that exists.
No one's expecting you to, but it's also not hard to make an argument that isn't inherently straw-man-y. Also, so what? Look, if you make an argument and or claim based on a certain atheist perspective, yeah, people are gonna say that's not all atheists, but a lot, if not most of them, are also going to address it on its merits, or lack thereof. Maybe you should just kinda get over it, mate.
Nor is it my goal to refute every instance of that common creed. Instead, I'm simply trying to address people who subscribe to a popular form of atheism, especially a kind that I interact with a lot.
I'm not talking about every atheist, just most of you. Good job, I'm sure this will go well.
On YouTube and that I see on certain channels, and to invite them to reconsider the logical coherence of their position.
Aw, thanks, because we just couldn't do that ourselves, could we? The big, dumb, stupid guys we all are. It's not like these most atheists come to their conclusions after spending a long time considering the logical coherence of various beliefs they once held to be true. So they're just all completely incapable of it.
And if what I describe doesn't align with your particular form of atheism, then you can be confident that I'm not addressing you, and then therefore there's no need to be defensive.
Dude, someone responding to your arguments isn't then being defensive. Someone saying, hey, that doesn't represent atheism, isn't defensive. Preloading a bunch of videos with, everyone keeps saying I'm wrong because they were too stupid to understand what I wasn't talking about them, is kind of defensive as f***. And people who aren't the thing you were talking about can still recognize when you are talking bullshit regardless.
So the particular kind of atheism that I'm addressing in this video is the kind that says that only what can be materially observed and empirically measured is real, and that if you want to assert anything as true, that is the kind of evidence that you need to provide.
Well, not to do the thing, but then you aren't addressing atheism, you're addressing naturalism. Or more specifically, probably materialism, and that's fine. Just learn what fucking words mean. It's not hard, and sure, fine. Many, if not most atheists likely subscribe to a worldview that more or less is covered by that. Okay, still wouldn't stop them arguing against the things you said, regardless of what you believe, but fine. Can we shut the fuck up about everyone not understanding you now? Christ.
And it's on those kinds of grounds that they accuse religious believers of being superstitious for not being able to provide empirical evidence for our religious claims.
I mean, yeah, it does kind of come off that way. The definition of superstitious is along the lines of credulous belief in the supernatural, and missing a huge chunk of how we know things are real in the real world, and then that not turning up for pretty much all religious beliefs does make it sound pretty dang superstitious, at least if you ask me. Even if you have reasons to believe outside of, facts, if they aren't very good reasons, it's same again.
So it's this kind of atheist that I address this question to, because I just don't think that they can answer it.
Well, I don't believe that it's very likely that there is anything beyond the natural world, and frankly, anything that exists beyond our current understanding of the universe. If we're eventually able to test it, that counts as natural. And without the ability to test something, there's a real good chance it's just not true. So I'm at least close enough to that kind of atheist to do this thing. So come on, what's your question? I hope it's a fucking banger.
I've done a lot of searching myself to see, are there atheists out there? Are there commentators? Are there even scholars who answer this? And I don't seem to be able to find one that is satisfying.
Now, is it not satisfying, or is it not satisfying according to you? Because you have to realize those aren't the same thing, especially if you are simply using your incredulity to dismiss everything that you just don't vibe with, man. A good answer that completely covers everything you ask while remaining logically consistent isn't wrong just because you don't like it.
The question is slavery wrong?
Yeah? I'm sorry, I don't want to make it sound like that was in any way difficult to answer. I'm just, not confident this isn't some kind of trick or gotcha because, it totally is. But yeah, owning other people is a really shit thing to do. Not only because it violates their bodily autonomy, but also you have to be near people in order to do it. I don't understand why anyone would want to do that in the first place. It just doesn't make any sense.
And the reason I ask that question is because virtually all respectable people will frantically trip over themselves to be the first to affirm that, yeah, it's wrong. Slavery is definitely wrong.
Do people frantically fall over themselves? Or are they, like me, kind of suspicious of anyone asking that question in the first place? Especially when it's coming out of the mouth of a guy who just said that no one can give him a satisfying answer. And even then, it's generally a question that for most people kind of doesn't need to be asked. So I could also see people mostly being confused in a, what? You don't know? Is this your first time doing a words? Am I talking to a fucking alien kind of reply, rather than this non-existent desperate scramble to prove, no, I'm the one guy who thinks that slavery is fucked up. It's really weird.
And I even hear many atheists accuse the Bible of being morally inferior for not going far enough in its condemnations of slavery.
Not far enough is an absolutely hilarious way of saying explicitly condones it with instructions on how to treat your slaves, where it's okay to get them from, how to get one to be a forever slave, how to get away with beating them almost to death, and various other things that aren't. You should never, ever, ever have slaves, you fucking assholes. What is wrong with you? I'm God and I say no because slavery is fucked up. That chapter of the Bible was apparently left out because of how much it was totally meant to be in there.
But I don't think that the atheist of the variety that I described earlier can answer this question sufficiently.
Well, sufficient and not being able to at all are not the same thing either. I mean, I'm 100% sure it's not that hard and you are just being obtuse. But even if it was difficult to get an acceptable answer, so fucking what? You don't need to be able to answer every question in order to hold a particular worldview. And just because a person can't answer whatever, that doesn't mean that any answer you bring to the table gets to go in its place. I mean, if you want to talk about unsatisfying answers, God did it is right up there. So up there, you would think it was literally in heaven. But heaven doesn't real, just like God, so.
By that, I don't mean that They don't have answers, just that their answers are illogical and that they expose an inconsistency in the kinds of evidence that they demand of others to account for their beliefs.
What's the betting that by illogical he means I don't understand the logic, therefore it must not exist? Also, I kind of fucking hate the logic argument as it is, because anything can be logical, but logical is not about being factual. You can prove literally any idea using logic, but I ain't seen no whiskey fountain in my garden. Do you?
Because if you're going to logically account for the truth of a statement like slavery is wrong, you have to be able to define the terms of that statement. Slavery is easy enough to define, so I'm not going to spend any time on that.
Frankly, I am completely flabbergasted considering how long you spent defining atheists out of not being who you are talking about, I promise. But okay. Also, it's owning another human. It would have taken less words if you'd have just fucking said it.
But the word wrong is one that I've never heard defined in a way that is consistent with atheism.
See, this is where you get people calling you a big smug silly doo-doo head, because consistent with atheism doesn't fucking mean anything. Even when you define types of atheists, atheism itself is just the lack of belief in God. And if you want to be a tool about it who doesn't know how fucking words work, the belief that no God exists. Neither of those have any need or even a fucking reason to define what the hell wrong means. But again, it's not like that matters. But maybe you might start to understand why people have a problem with the shit you say.
Because if you're going to define something logically, you cannot include the thing that you're trying to define in your definition. That would be circular reasoning and therefore fallacious.
Okay, perhaps, but every explanation of what right and wrong are I have encountered from atheists isn't that. It's based on factors very much outside of wrong simply being wrong. It's based on suffering and harm and things that people almost universally find objectionable, like running out of whiskey for their fountain. These are real world, often devastating consequences and not circular reasons. How could this happen to me?
For example, if I asked you, what is a honeybee? And you said, well, it's a bee-like creature that makes honey, I would be fully within my rights to accuse you of failing to answer my question.
Yeah, like when I ask a Crimsbob, how do you know that slavery is wrong using the Bible? And they say, well, the Bible is right because it says it's right. That would be circular and a way stronger answer than what it actually has, because it doesn't really say that slavery is wrong, only that certain specific people should not be slaves. And even then, you can make them lifelong indentured servants. What was that about satisfying answers again?
All you said is that a bee is a bee.
That's some real big brain smarting you're doing right there. No wonder you have all those lovely subscribers. I mean, where else are they going to get this kind of in-depth analysis? My channel? No. I don't assume my audience is that fucking stupid.
And that's obvious enough. But what's also true is that we can't use undefined synonyms in our definitions of a thing either. So if you ask me, what is a cat?
Dinner.
And I said, well, a cat is a feline creature that humans have a disordered amount of affection for.
Yeah, that's what I said, dinner. I don't understand why he's just repeating after me. Wish he would do it more, frankly.
Well, feline is just a synonym for cat. So all I've said, again, is a cat is a cat.
Actually, no you didn't, because your specific definition is clearly for a house cat. And while all house cats are felines, not all felines are house cats. I should know, because I swear I used to have more children. I think Mittens here is hiding them somewhere.
Which does nothing to define what it is, it just keeps us going in circles. And unfortunately, every time I've heard an atheist give an account for morality, which then allows them to use words like right and wrong logically and coherently, this is the exact thing that they do.
Okay, but if you're going to make that claim, you're going to have to give some examples. Because again, in my experience, they are very much solid examples of things that exist outside of, again, defining wrong as bad or wrong or anything like that.
Like one article I read said that morality is simply whatever prevents suffering and increases well-being. But all they've done, according to this definition, is made suffering synonymous with evil and well-being synonymous with goodness, never really defining any of them.
No, quit. Defining morality as what prevents suffering and increases well-being isn't just them renaming things. It sets an actual practical framework where a specific action's goodness or badness is judged by its real-world, observable impact. It takes morality from just an idea to physical consequence. This isn't just synonyms, for fuck's sake. And the fact that you can't understand that is a you problem, not a problem with any form of atheism or any worldview that contains it.
And furthermore, they're not even accurate synonyms.
That's because they're not fucking synonyms, you goddamn moron. Jesus Christ, you claim something to be this thing that it isn't and then go, see? This is some of the stupidest shit that I've ever heard, god damn it. If you want a fucking circular synonym, try this video's really dumb, because it's fucking idiotic.
Suffering isn't simply wrong or evil. In fact, I can think of all kinds of instances in which varying degrees of suffering can produce something that is widely considered good.
Okay, I mean, that's not the point of suffering in this context. Suffering here is not just pain and trauma, but an overall trend towards negative outcomes. But whatever. I can't wait to hear your example that doesn't understand that, because you know it fucking won't.
Such as like chemotherapy or surgery.
Are you serious? Like I said, it's about an overall amount. That's what these things mean when people know what the f they're talking about. So yeah, someone going through chemo probably isn't having the most fun time of their life. But you know what essentially causes infinite suffering to a person in this regard, at least from a certain perspective? Being fucking dead. Dead is most people's worst case scenario in almost every situation, aside from some wildly specific outliers. For your average day-to-day person, they would go through quite large amounts of pain in order to live. And surgery, fuck me, that's even easier to square, because the chances are you'll be unconscious when it happens and heavily medicated after it's done for the pain and shit. You're confusing suffering with a huge upside with suffering for the sake of suffering. It's the difference between amputating a gangrenous limb so that you don't fucking die and like watching this freaking video. I know which sounds more fun to me.
Exercise is almost universally recognized as a good thing in the right place and at the right time.
Well, you see, now you're just making stuff up. Everyone knows that exercise is just a tool of big fit to make it seem as though big fat, aka me, is somehow out of shape. Excuse me, a circle is a shape, thank you very much. And one of the best, if you ask me.
But the first time I went running as a way to get back in shape, the experience was so unpleasant for me that I nearly threw up.
Beneficial pain is not suffering in this context. It's just a thing you need to go through to get to the sort of maximal well-being of being a fit, healthy person who doesn't get worn out after walking from his couch to the kitchen to acquire some whiskey and a second pizza, or some other obviously completely unspecific to anyone we know's example.
Self-sacrifice and self-denial seem to me to be traits that most people recognize as being honorable, but almost always introduce a degree of suffering.
Holy shit, I can't do this anymore, because ironically, I have been doing the self-sacrifice of being exposed to your ridiculous nonsense without the necessary and hilarious interjections of Sir Sick. But because I did that, those who are watching this video after I have added those things, their entertainment causes a massive reduction in the overall suffering in the world. I'm basically Super Jesus, and if you laughed even once, you should totally give me money on Patreon. It's for the greater good, baby!
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the